condemned to die for the slaughter of innocent people. The term they called me was mass murderer. They also got me for civil disobedience. They're kind of exotic terms, don't you think? Civil disobedience. If I'm being civil, I'm not being disobedient. Mass murder. There's nothing mass about 7. Mass murder makes me sound like some sort of bloodthirsty lunatic. I wasn't. Not. My targets all had meaning. They made a statement. Not just some crazy running around. They were all illegitimate political leaders. People who disregarded the will of the people and just ruled with an iron fist. And no respect for our heritage, our past, customs, our values, our beliefs. They just did what they wanted and expected the people to go along with it, whether they liked it or not. Well, somebody had to make a stand. Somebody had to make a statement. Somebody had to fight back. Tread on everybody else, fine. You tread on this snake, you get bit. So I bit back. Didn't plan on 7. I thought the first one would make a loud enough statement that they would listen. Somebody would pay attention. They didn't. So the second one, I made a louder statement. The third, a louder. I was good at what I did. Very clean, very methodic. Till the last one. That one kind of went bad. He was supposed to be home alone. His family wasn't supposed to come home when they did. They weren't supposed to be there. It's not my fault. One of the neighbors heard a commotion and saw me slipping out the back window after everything was done. He identified me. I was arrested. The trial was a scam. It was a mockery. They framed me for all kinds of stuff I didn't even have anything to do with. But I was convicted, found guilty, thrown into a dungeon where I just waited to die. It's cold, dark, damp. After a few weeks, the rats began to gnaw at my feet that are chained to the floor. Sometimes for flavor in the rice they give us, they add worms, just as a cruel joke, I think. Got really sick, and I lost track of what day it is. Who knows how long I've been down here, but it doesn't matter. I sit in this 6-foot by 8-foot box, this hole in the ground, where I just wait to die. 32 years old, and all I got to live for is this jail cell. At least that's all I had. Early one morning, 2 guards came to my cell. "Get up," they demanded, and each grabbing an arm, they picked me up and hauled me out onto this long, winding corridor that led up onto a balcony overlooking a large, angry crowd that was buzzing around like a nest of wasps in the hot summer sun. This crowd was angry. They were fighting with each other. They were throwing rocks, spitting, cursing. Suddenly, they all started pointing and yelling and cursing, and I turned around to see what they were yelling at. And I saw the guards bringing another man down the corridor. This man was in worse condition than I was. His whole body was just beaten to a pulp. Large hunks of meat just hung from his body limp like wet pieces of hamburger. Blood was just pouring down his head into his eyes that were so black and blue and puffed up, he couldn't even see out of them. He couldn't even walk under his own strength. The guards had to drag him down, his head bobbing to one side, blood splattering everywhere. This guy was a mess. I didn't know what was happening. I heard Pilate yell something about prisoners and kings in the Passover, and then he pointed to me and said, "Barabbas or your king, in whom I can find no fault in." Now I realized what was happening. My chest exploded. It's the Passover. See, the governor would play this cruel game of eeny, meeny, miny, mo on the Passover. He let the crowd pick one prisoner, let him go scot-free, and then he'd kill somebody else. It's my turn to play the game. I got a 50-50 chance. Within an hour, I either die a horrible, painful death, or I go completely free. I looked over at the man. With all the strength he had, he turned his head, and he raised his black and blue, swollen eyes, and he looked at me. In his eyes, there was no anger. There was no fear. There was love. And I heard this voice as he stared deep into my soul. In the back of my head, I heard this voice saying, I love you. I love you. Nobody's ever told me that. My gaze was quickly broken away when I heard the crowd scream, "Crucify! Crucify! Crucify!" Jesus. We want Barabbas. I couldn't believe this was happening. I didn't deserve freedom. I didn't ask for freedom. I asked for nothing, and yet this man was about to give everything for me. I looked over at him, and he was still staring at me. His eyes burning deep into my heart. I heard that voice again. I love you. Pilate screamed out to the crowd, "Why? What crime has he committed? He's done no wrong. I can find no fault in him." But the crowd just screamed, "Crucify! Crucify! Crucify! Crucify Jesus! We want Barabbas!" Guards turned him around, and they drug him down the long, winding corridor and out of sight, but he never took his eyes off of me. That voice kept going through my head. I love you. The guards came over to me, they unshackled me, and just left me, standing there, alone, overlooking the now departing, angry crowd. For the first time in my life, I'm free. Scot-free, no parole board hearings, no checking in, no appeals. Free. I didn't know what to do. Not knowing what to do or where to go, I followed the crowd as they made their way up this long, rocky, narrow trail. It's called the Way of Death. It dead ends in only one place. The place of the skull. I know a lot about this place. This is where I was to be executed. I got there in time to watch them hold the man down as they drove spikes into his arms and nails into his feet. I've seen a lot of blood in my lifetime, but my skin still crawled as I watched the flesh tear in his arms and soldier brought the cross into a hole they dug to brace it up. That was supposed to be me up there. That was almost me. Again, in his eyes, there was no anger, there was no fear, just love. just before he died. He raised his eyes. He looked clear in the back of the crowd, directly at me. And that voice was in my head again. I love you. I couldn't take it. I turned and I ran. I ran down the hill and out of sight just as fast as I could. Partway down, I stumbled on a rock to see if he was still looking at me, and I picked myself up and kept running. But he never took his eyes off of me. When I got out of sight, I cried. Those lovely nights dying in my place was too much. That was supposed to be me up there. His blood bought my freedom. I didn't deserve it. I didn't ask for it. He just gave it. He parted my life with his life. And he didn't just do it for me. He did it for you, too. And now you're standing at the foot of the cross, looking up at him, and he's looking at you saying, I love you. Just like me, now you have a choice. I ran. But I came back. Hanging on that cross, he can see you running. He's not going to stop you. You have to go to him. He sees you running,